Hello everyone, Susan Vincent's here, and this is part 5 of our Zoom training series. And in this video, we're going to talk about several settings and security features that is a best practice to use when you're teaching students. Now, some of these may or may not come into play when you're meeting with adults, but this is going to focus on when you're meeting with students. So we're going to start on the actual Zoom website. So if you're following along, go with me to zoom.us, and we're going to do some of these settings that you can preset before you ever even create a meeting on the fly or schedule a meeting. So when you get to zoom.us, you're going to sign in. I'm already signed in, so you're going to sign in over here on the top right-hand corner. Right now it says My Account. So when you get signed in, you're then going to click on My Account, which will bring up your information as it loads. And once it brings that up, you'll see all of your information that you can edit and do whatever you need to do with. And then over on the left-hand side, you're going to click on Settings. So once you click on Settings, it'll load to another screen and give you several choices. And you can divide this up. We're just going to go down the line, and all of these will be included as we go down the line, or you can just click on the link and skip down to it. So these first part is if you're scheduling a meeting, these are some of the presets you may or may not want to leave on or off. Okay, so host video. I typically start meetings with the host video on. That's part of the point of Zoom, is to have the video on. And of course, you can change this within the meeting also. You can always turn the video off at any point. And here on the participants video, that's definitely a personal choice there. If you're being the host of the meeting, you may or may not want to have those participants with the video automatically on or off. With mine, I typically meet with adults, so I just let them have that choice. With your students, you may want to have that on, okay? And then you have the audio type. I typically leave that on telephone and computer audio. You'll see that when you're even using the app, and it'll ask you, do you want to join with telephone and computer audio? The telephone is for those who may not have internet access. So that's just a good best practice to leave on. This is a very important security feature right here, the join before the host, allowing participants to join the meeting before the host arrives. This is typically not a good practice when dealing with students. This is kind of like when they're coming to your classroom, and many of you may have them wait out in the hallway by the door if you're not there, because you do not want them in your classroom before you're there. So I would leave that one off. So if it's on, it's blue. If it's off, it's gray. The personal meeting ID, you've probably seen that on some of the articles that you've read. And this is using a personal ID, which will create a just your own little personal meeting ID to let you use that for your own meetings. And again, I typically meet with adults, so I leave that off, but you meeting with students may make a little bit of difference. And then this is the authenticated users. This means that they need to be part of our CA schools, and they have to go through several questions to prove that they are who they are. Okay, so that's definitely a good point, making them prove that they are a student with a castudents.us account. Here is one where it asks you if you want to require a password when scheduling a meeting. Some people have done that. So say you are teaching chemistry on Red Day Block 1, you might make your password ChemRed1 or something like that, so that they have to type that password in and only they know it. Now, of course, there's always the possibility of students sharing links that they're not supposed to, but remember, those types of things can happen if we're doing face-to-face instruction. So handle that just like you would any classroom management option and report it to administration if you need to, or take care of it as you normally would. Okay, and then we're going to skip on down. Here is this setting, the mute participants upon entry. You can turn that on if you so choose, so they're not all chatting and you're getting all this noisy feedback and all that stuff. So that's definitely up to you whether you want that on or off. And remember, when you're actually in the meeting, you have the ability to turn them off at that point in the Manage Participants section, which we will review again. Okay, then you skip on down and you have the section called In the Meeting. Okay, and some of these things, we're going to skip that first one. We're going to talk about the chat. Okay, so this is where you can have some teacher control. So allow meeting participants to send a message to all participants. You can choose to turn that off. If I were you and you don't want a lot of extra discussion going on the side, I would definitely turn that off. And then for you, if you do have that on, I would highly recommend that you do the prevent participants from saving the chat. Okay, then private chat, allowing meeting participants to send one-to-one messages to another. I would definitely, as a classroom teacher meeting with students, totally turn that off so they're not having private conversations. So we turn that off, or you can turn it back on this way. I would definitely recommend that you turn that off. Okay, then this is another setting that you can choose to do. This will automatically, if you turn that on, save the chat. If you do allow the chat, this will automatically save it if you turn that on. You do have a way to save it if you don't automatically have it do it, and I'll show you that in a different video. You have also the option to play a sound when participants join or leave. It'll just give you a little chime sound. File transfer. Host and participants can send files through the in-meeting chat. If you turn that on, you have the ability to share a file. But in your all's case, I would definitely use your Canvas course to share any files that they would need, and just leave this off so that way students are not sharing attachments and things that they shouldn't be. Okay, and then down here, if you do have a co-host in the meeting, you want to, if you have an assistant teacher or a co-teacher, you definitely want to have that turned on, so that way they have the ability to assist you. And if you do have the chat turned on, your co-host can moderate the chat and those types of things. Then you have some polling and some different things that you have available. And then we have screen sharing. Now, all of this can also be activated within the meeting while the meeting is going on. But these are just some presets that it's good to have in place as you schedule your meetings with your classes. So this is the screen sharing, and I would turn it on because there's times as the teacher you're going to want to share your screen, but I would keep it on host only. And then you have the ability, if an opportunity arises and you need to, you have within the meeting the ability to allow other participants to share if you need to. And then this disables screen sharing for the users, so keep that off. And then there's a whiteboard feature. If I were you and you are, as the teacher, needing to share things, there is a whiteboard feature also. And we'll talk more about that in a different video. And then here are some other options. If you remove a user, okay, so in Manage Participants, if you have a student being disruptive or just not doing what they're supposed to do and you have to remove them, you have the ability to allow them to rejoin here, and that's definitely up to you and your principal as to what the guidelines are in taking care of that, but this is where you turn that off or on. And then allowing participants to rename themselves. I would not turn this on. That way they have to join with their correct name, and they have to be a CA school, CA student .us account to join your meeting. Okay, then here are some advanced features, and some of us were talking the other day about the breakout room feature. So this is if you need to divide your class into small groups to discuss a topic and then bring them back together. This is where you activate that. So as you preset your settings, if you have the breakout room option on, it will always give you that option. Now, you don't have to use it. So because I have this turned on now, when I go to host a meeting, down on my bottom video bar area where the record button and the manage participant buttons are, you will then see a breakout room option, which again, we will discuss more deeply in another video. Here's some closed captioning options if you need to use them. The rest of these are pretty much just normal and do not affect anything else. So we're going to scroll through, and then we're going to get down toward the bottom here in the waiting room. So this is huge. The waiting room is a good practice to use, especially during these first several sessions that you do with your students. I turn the waiting room on, and that way attendees cannot join until the host admits them. Okay, so this is to help prevent any of those hacking issues that hopefully will not occur if you use this waiting room. So then once you turn the waiting room option on, then you're going to have the ability to either choose to have all participants wait in the waiting room until you admit them, or just guest participants, which in your case you will not be having, probably guest. Okay, so then we're just going to scroll on down. Everything else should be just normal. So as you change any of these settings, notice they automatically save. So for example, if I turn off my waiting room and then I turn it back on, notice I have a little option up here that says your settings have been updated. So that's a quick run through. And if I were you, it's a very good practice just to go to the zoom.us website first, go to your profile, and go to the settings and go through all of these that we talked about and refer to any of the other graphics that we have sent you and articles that have the best practices talking about the waiting room, talking about the chat settings, password settings, and all of those things. Refer to those graphics that we have put on our social media pages or we have emailed to you. So go in and preset these settings first or at any point from here on out. Set those. Once you set those, they will stay until you change them and do something else with them. And then at any point during your meeting, you can always manipulate these within the meeting, which we'll dive a little deeper into in our video part 6. So if you have any questions about Zoom settings and best practices in meeting with your students and in being safe, please do not hesitate to reach out, and I will be happy to help answer any questions that you might have. Have a great day and happy e-learning. Bye-bye.